Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. We're very happy to have all of you here. Welcome, and we're pleased to start this side event of the UN Statistical Commission in 2021 called Continued Efforts to Provide Evidence on SDG Achieved in the COVID Era. And it's a real pleasure to have speakers and panelists from a number of countries that can really showcase a lot of progress and a lot of work that has been done on SDG implementation in the last year, despite all the challenges of COVID-19. We will be recording the event today and we'll make it available to everyone afterwards. We will also make the slide deck available. This will be sent out to all of you who registered in the next days. I will now start by just saying a few words about the project that this is related to. UN Statistics Division has been running a project funded by the UK government for a few years now called the UNSD-FCDO project on SDG monitoring. In that project, we've been working with 20 countries and we will be hearing the experiences of quite a few of them in this event today. The project overall focuses on SDG data and metadata compilation, on coordination, and user engagement. And we have a quite extensive web page with a lot of information, both about the countries, about the workshops that we've been holding, with all the materials available, etc. If you could go back 2 slides, Richard, I'll also just briefly take us through the agenda. The country experiences more concretely that we will be hearing about today are from Rwanda, Myanmar, and Zimbabwe. And then we will also have a panel discussion with 4 countries that will be moderated by Ian Cody from FCDO or former DFID. We'll also be hearing closing remarks from Francesca Perucci from Statistics Division. I will moderate the session today. I'm an interregional advisor at the UN Statistics Division and also managing the project. But now I'll hand over to Richard Tonkin, who is also working on the project and who joined us about a year ago. Before that, he had worked with the Office of National Statistics of the UK. So over to you, Richard.
Before we hear from our speakers and the panel who come from just a few of the different project countries that we're working with, I'll give a bit more of an introduction to set the scene for today. So over the last few years, I think we've seen a changing landscape with increased demand for data and statistics, with the SDGs playing a big role in this. The SDGs have also necessitated greater coordination with a variety of actors, whether that's between different parts of the national statistical system or between national and international organizations. I think it's fair to say that COVID-19 has driven these trends even further and even faster. It's clear that the SDGs can tell us a lot about the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on health, but also on education, poverty and hunger, on the economy, inequality and so on. That means they can provide an important framework for guiding both the immediate policy response to the pandemic and in shaping the longer term recovery. But in order for this to happen, having data that's not just good quality, timely and disaggregated, but also accessible to users is key. There's been a lot of work done by UNDESA and others to highlight how COVID-19 is impacting societies. The diagram on the right here gives an example of the impacts of the pandemic at the SDG goal level. What's clear is that the pandemic affects all 17 of the global goals. And that's why the Interagency Expert Group on SDG indicators has worked in recent months to identify a set of 74 unique indicators which are likely to have been highly impacted by the pandemic. The idea is that this indicator set can act as a tool for countries, as a starting point for countries to focus their efforts both in informing policymakers of the impact of the pandemic, but also in moving forward with data production. These indicators are available in a background paper to the Statistical Commission, which you can download from the Commission website. Of course, while the pandemic has highlighted the importance of data and statistics, it's also created some real challenges for their production and dissemination, which I think are highlighted in the surveys of NSOs that UNSD and the World Bank have jointly conducted. We can see, for example, that in May last year, 65% of NSOs' headquarters were either fully or partially closed. And these disruptions to work arrangements limited the ability of NSOs to produce statistics with, for example, around 9 in 10 NSOs in low and lower middle income countries reporting that the pandemic was affecting their ability to meet international reporting requirements at that time. By July, so most of the headquarters had reopened, but despite that, the majority still had some or all of their staff working at home. And the surveys also showed that there was a clear need for additional support to help mitigate the challenges caused by the pandemic, including technical assistance and training, as well as financial support. So against this context, in early spring last year, we were concerned that the pandemic might seriously derail the SDG monitoring activities of NSOs, both in the UNSD-FCDO project countries, but also more broadly. And as a project, we'd been giving a lot of face-to-face support to countries through workshops and other events. So that presented some very significant challenges. However, what became very apparent early on was that the level of commitment to monitoring the global goals shown by the project countries meant that work was able to continue, albeit with a rapid adaptation to new ways of working necessary. As I'll mention more in a moment, FCDO asked that we amend the scope of the project to include a focus on COVID-19 in addition to SDG monitoring. As part of this, we introduced regular webinars on different topics related to COVID-19, including SDG monitoring, household surveys, and user engagement. These were really great, bringing the countries together to provide support, to identify challenges, but perhaps also most importantly, to share experiences with each other. And with travel not possible, face-to-face workshops on data modeling, metadata, and user engagement have all been reimagined as remote trainings and have delivered those successfully to multiple countries over the last year. As the pandemic's progressed, we've really seen the countries rising to the challenge, and despite the impacts of the pandemic, they've made really strong progress in their SDG monitoring activities, really reflecting a really high level of ownership for the process. The majority of countries have now launched data platforms, and several others are very close. You can see screenshot examples of just a few of those platforms on this slide. The vast majority of countries have also been able to share their data using SDMX, while particularly in recent months, we've seen an increasing number of user engagement events being carried out. A new SDMX metadata template designed for use by both international organizations and individual countries was launched last year, and an increasing number of countries in the project have been trained in using it and are now starting to publish their metadata on their own data platforms and also share it with the SDG Lab, which is a tool developed by the project for comparing global and national data and metadata. So I mentioned before, the project scope has been expanded to cover statistical and data response to the pandemic. As part of this, several countries have received support on establishing COVID-19 data hubs using ArcGIS. The idea of these hubs is to bring together multiple data sources from both NSOs and line ministries in order to monitor COVID-19 impacts and help inform the policy response to the pandemic. But the project's also providing support on other COVID-19 related work, including, for example, the dissemination of COVID-19 related indicators through SDG platforms and thematic outputs. It's also providing support on the development of new COVID-19 impact surveys and dissemination and user engagement around existing surveys. We're also offering support to countries in the increased use of administrative and alternative data sources where traditional data collection has been impacted. I'd like to finish up by sharing with you the project websites that Rebecca briefly mentioned earlier. I really recommend that you take a look at it. It's got a large amount of useful and interesting content on it, including summaries of countries' SDG monitoring activities with links to their data platforms. It's also got details of the different project activities and copies of a wide range of resources that have been developed through the project, including copies of training materials and recordings of webinars and so on. So please do take a look. Okay, thank you very much. I'll hand back to Rebecca now to introduce our first speaker.
Thank you so much for taking us through this, Richard. And if anyone has questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will try and respond to them as much as we can. I am now very glad to introduce Jean-Luc Cabera from the Statistics Office in Rwanda, the Institute of Statistics of Rwanda. He's a data portals management officer there and will be sharing some of the experiences and the work that has been ongoing in Rwanda in the last years. Over to you.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank UN Statistical Division for organizing this amazing event and inviting Rwanda to share with you what we are doing to monitor SDG indicator, even if we are in challenging era of COVID-19. It is really important to recognize and emphasize on continued effort to provide evidence on SDG achievements despite the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. The achievement of SDG monitoring currently we have will not be possible when this effort we are talking about was not taken into consideration. In this presentation, I'm going to highlight some activities we have done on user engagement, data compilation, dissemination, and the open SDG data platform. Next. Before I jump to user engagement, let me talk a little bit about SDG landscape in Rwanda. From the assessment of SDG domestication shows that 199 are unique indicators applicable to Rwanda. It means out of 244 indicators, 33 of them classified as not applicable, and 12 indicators are repeated in one or more goals and targets. For applicable indicators, 74 are census-based, and then 125 are administrative-based indicators. This means that around 63% of data are from national statistical system. It requires more effort to engage them to release data. Next. COVID-19 has affected many user engagement activities we planned. Due to prevention measures, the activities like workshops and meetings that put people together has been stopped. So with my SDG team, we try to think about what we can do to stay connected with NSS members and engage them in releasing data and reporting on SDG indicators responsible for. So to do that, we have developed SDG data collection template, which is very easy to fill. This template was shared with ministries and institutions, and we explained to them how to use it. Then SDG data collection was aligned with statistical yearbook. We combined those two activities just as the best way to engage NSS members and receive timely SDG data. We also developed SDG progress report, which shows reporting status by sector. Then after we have provided technical support to NSS members through one-to virtual meetings, emails, and phone calls. Next. Data submitted from ministries and institutions was compiled in one dataset. In partnership with UNSD, last year in June, we have been conducted a virtual workshop on statistical data modeling. As a result from this workshop, we mapped national SDG indicators to the SDG DST. We customized Rwanda DST based on national indicators. We converted national SDG data into STMX, and then we published STMX dataset to SDG Lab. Please note that this dataset published is for only global indicators. Next. To make sure that Rwanda SDG indicators are well monitored and distributed to the general public, we are using Open SDG platform developed by ONS UK in collaboration with other stakeholders. So in partnership with ONS, we conducted regular meeting on management of national reporting platform. We upgraded the platform to the latest version, which is now compatible with STMX technology. You know, data for SDG indicators need to be sourced, quality assured, updated regularly, and uploaded to reporting platform. We developed SDG quality assurance framework to make this process clear, avoiding duplication of effort and enable collaboration on data acquisition. We also uploaded available indicators and metadata on the platform. Currently, 115 indicators are uploaded. Next. Next. Next, please. However, there were a number of challenges we faced during the implementation of SDG monitoring due to COVID-19. Collaboration and the effort of everyone is needed to provide evidence on SDG achievement. We stopped doing user engagement activities because of this pandemic, and those activities will continue to strengthen a good collaboration with the National Statistical System. Next. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much to you, Jean-Luc. It's really great, all the work that has been ongoing in Rwanda, and I think linked to the project, you've really been actively engaged in all the different activities, from data management and data structuring to user engagement, and it was very nice to hear about all the work here at this side event. I'd now like to hand over to the next speaker, Dr. Nhu Nui Mang, who is a Deputy Director and Section Head of Research and Development Section of the Central Statistical Organization of Myanmar. Myanmar has also been doing a lot of interesting work, also related to COVID-19. So we are really looking forward to hearing from you, Dr. Nyman. Over to you. I can see you now, Dr. Nyman, but I can't hear you yet. I see that you're speaking, but I can't hear you. Maybe you could check if your plug is properly plugged in. I still can't hear you. Can you hear him, Richard?
No, I can't hear you there.
So maybe what we can do while Dr. Nyman sorts this out, we can move on to the third speaker of today. If we can have the slides of the third speaker. That's Mr. Godfrey Matsinde from Zimbabwe. He has taken over the work related to SDG coordination quite recently, but has already been very active in the work. He's currently a manager responsible for coordination at the National Statistical System, monitoring and evaluation at ZimStat, which is the official statistics agency in Zimbabwe. So are you here with us, Godfrey? Please, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, great, thank you.
All right. Okay. First and foremost, let me express my appreciation for the organizers of this event for allowing us to present what we've been doing under these COVID challenges. So basically, in my presentation, I'll be focusing on the activities that are being funded by the UNSD project and what we've done so far in terms of achievement. So that's my brief presentation outline, where I'm just looking at the open data platform, compilation of metadata in terms of our user engagement, data sharing arrangements, and our preparations for the voluntary national review and the COVID-19 survey. Next. Next, that's just a background where I was just highlighting that just like other NSOs, we've also been facing challenges imposed by the COVID pandemic. But to our relief, I think this project has assisted us very much and enabled ZimStat to continue producing data by adopting other data collection approaches. Next. Okay, next slide. So one of the key activities that has been undertaken by ZimStat is the development of an open data platform where we are saying this platform is not only dedicated to SDG indicators, but it also allows the agents to implement a sort of a one platform where users can explore all the statistical products that are within ZimStat. So the platform, of course, it was developed with technical assistance from the African Development Bank. It's also a user-friendly platform which allows us to upload SDG datasets and maintain them updated, and also to create a dashboard for each SDG indicator. And also we can publish through the SDGs page on which users can browse and visualize the indicators. And also it's a dissemination platform. Next slide, please. So the portal, it also, okay. There's another slide. Okay, the portal, it also offers options to Zimstar to share data sets and dashboards to main social network, and also promote the use of the SDG platform. So basically, there is the link to the open data platform. Or alternatively, users can also access the platform through the agent's website, which is shown on the slide. Next. So that's just a brief about the open data platform. So the other activity that we've also been receiving support from the project is the of a metadata handbook. This process is currently ongoing. So what we've done is we've set up a team within the agents representing the various departments in Zimstar, and using the template that was developed by UNSD, we've now started work on the initial draft, which we hope to share with our SDG cluster committees, which is made up of the stakeholders from the various ministries and other institutions. So once that is done, I think we plan also, with assistance from the project, to engage a consultant for the technical guidance, and also to sort of fine-tune the document so that it meets the expected standards. So our target is to have this handbook in place by the end of June this year. So that's as far as the metadata. So it's work in progress. And next slide. Then in terms of user engagement, this has been quite a challenge due to the restrictions. I think we are used to face-to-face meetings with our stakeholders, but this is now, this cannot be done because of the pandemic. However, I think the agents is managed to engage users through other platforms. For example, we had a user-producer symposium, which is an interaction between stakeholders and Zimstar, where the main objective is to identify the data gaps in the data that we are producing, and also get recommendations and strategies on how to address these gaps. Then also we've received financial support to upgrade our website so that it is easy and fast for our users. Then we've also developed a Twitter handle. It's zimstar.co.zw, which we are currently using for disseminating results from our survey, and also general information about what's going on within the department. We've also created a WhatsApp group for stakeholders, which promotes interaction between the Zimstar technical staff and our stakeholders or users on any issues related to production of statistics. Then things like press statements, where we announce the monthly routine surveys, such as the consumer price index. Then also there's extensive use of online platforms for meetings and other engagements with stakeholders. You know, we also have a Facebook account, which will soon be operational. And in terms of data sharing arrangements, we've also made use of the data sharing template that we received from the project. So we've identified the 3 institutions in our pilot, and these are the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, and also the Department of Immigration. So we intend to carry out this pilot in March, and the results of the pilot, of course, will be used to modify the template, which will be adopted as a template, a data sharing template for other institutions. So we expect that by the end of April, we should have a template. Okay. Then in terms of preparations for the voluntary national review, you might be aware that Zimbabwe, we presented our first voluntary national review in 2017. So based on that, we are developing the next VNR report. And I think our government has shown commitment to this whole process by integrating the SDGs into the National Development Strategy, which is an economic blueprint for our country. So preparations for the next voluntary national review are currently underway, and these are being done through participatory and inclusive consultations in the form of voluntary local reviews, where teams which have been set up made up of government ministries, including Zimstat, of course. They are the projects in all the 10 provinces of the country, and information collected from these consultations, as well as also the SDGs progress report and the M&E framework and other administrative records. All this information will feed into the voluntary national review. So to assist us to finalize this process, we have engaged a consultant. I think the consultant has already started work. In terms of reference have already been finalized, and a work plan for the consultant is already in place. It was adopted by the technical committee. So the consultant will be engaged for a period of a month, and we expect the report to be completed by March, and April the report should be taken for validation by our stakeholders before it is submitted to the cabinet in May. So that's our preparations as far as the VNR is concerned. Next, please. We've also been undertaking a surveys within this COVID era, and one of the surveys that we've been undertaking is the rapid PICES, which is a telephone-based survey, where we are saying we are collecting information to measure the socio-economic impacts of COVID in Zimbabwe. And so far, 2 rounds of this survey were completed. The first one in July 2020, second in September. So the results are already out for these 2 surveys, and they can be accessed on our Zimstat website. So results for the 3rd survey, which was undertaken between December 2020 to January 2021, they are still being analyzed and will be uploaded as soon as they are ready. So this is a survey which basically is looking at such topics as access and participation in educational activities during school closures, access to basic necessities, employment dynamics, income losses, food security, and assistance that households, vulnerable households, received during this lockdown period. Next. So I think that's that's the link to the survey or through our Zimstat website. So I think I've already talking about next slide. So in conclusion, I have already mentioned the appreciation that as an agency, for the assistance that we've received through the project, and this has enabled Zimstat to continue providing data. And we've also been able to embrace new data collection methods, as also engage stakeholders in the various platforms. So I think in conclusion, I can say if we successfully implement all the activities under the project, I think this should result in an improvement in our data availability for SDG indicators, thus drastically reducing the existing data gaps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Godfrey. It's really impressive how many things you have been doing and how much you have in the pipeline, despite all the challenges that you're facing. And that's actually something we wanted to follow up with everyone here in the session. And we're going to set up a poll where we're going to ask you the following question. How have SDG monitoring activities affected by COVID-19 your country or your organization? Has it had little or no impacts? Some initial disruption, but now back on track? Some ongoing disruption or substantial ongoing disruption? And you should be able to see the polling on the right-hand side of the WebEx tool. You can select one option here, just cross the option that is correct and then do submit.
Okay, I've seen it.
And while we're waiting for everyone to fill information, I think we have around half a minute left. I also just wanted to highlight that we've heard first from Rwanda and now also from Zimbabwe about the development of SDG platforms and also COVID-19 platforms related to that. And here I just want to highlight really the very good collaboration we've had with the Office of National Statistics, who is really supporting countries with open SDG like Rwanda is using, and also the African Development Bank, who is supporting in a number of African countries with the open data portal that Zimbabwe is using. We'll also be hearing from some of the other countries that have chosen other options, but these are the ones that most countries, at least that 20 project countries, have chosen. Do we now have the results from the poll, Jaspreet? I see that the majority of people didn't respond, but we did have a couple of people that said that there was some initial disruption and even that there is some ongoing disruption. So it seems like overall there's still challenges, but that it's luckily not extremely bad, and most countries and agencies have been able to cope with this. So let me try coming back to Dr. Nguyen Mang from Myanmar and see if the sound now is working.
Can you hear me?
Yes, great. Thank you.
Okay, I'm now joining the mobile phone. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to start the PowerPoint.
Yeah,
yes.
Richard.
Yes, please. Please share my PowerPoint.
Yes, we are doing now. So over to you, Dr. Nguyen.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Dr. Nguyen from Central Service Organization of Myanmar. The topic I'm to do about is SDG achievement and preparation of the first VNL in Myanmar in COVID year. Next slide. Okay. There are 10 outlines in my presentation. There are two parts. The first one is for the SDG monitoring and open data platform in creation in Myanmar with the help of the development partner. And then the UNSD-FCDO project activities and ASEAN step activities, and then for the first VNL preparation of Myanmar. Next slide. Myanmar has also suffered the COVID-19 pandemic, like the countries over the world, so that we have noticed the same groups, densely populated urban areas, and then for the migrant workers from returning from the abroad. So we are highlighted to do the preliminary analysis for the analysis areas for the CSO Myanmar. First one is the densely populated areas and the vulnerable socio-economic impacts and the vulnerable groups, in which included the elderly, women, young, and then migrant workers, district workers within the countries, and then who are staying in regions in Myanmar. So the next slide. I have previously mentioned in previous presentation, I would like to introduce the COVID-19 Economic Relief Plan in Myanmar. This was released in 27 April 2020 from the Ministry of Finance and Industry. This intends to measure the mitigate of the COVID-19 effect on Myanmar economy. This 27 goals, 10 strategy and 10 strategies, 36 action plans is included. This is also aligned with the Myanmar Sustainable Development Plan, which is fully aligned with the global SDG. Next slide. I would like to link it with the global SDG with the CERB. COVID-19 Economic Relief Plan, CERB Goal 1 and Goal 3 is also aligned with the global SDG Goal 8. And then for the COVID-19 Economic Relief Plan, Goal 6 is fully aligned with the Goal 3. And then now, as in Myanmar, government is trying to reopen the school and university in the COVID-19 pandemic. It was fully aligned with the CERB Goal 4, CERB Goal 4 and the global SDG Goal 4. Next slide. CSO Myanmar is I would like to do the high-level frequency monitoring survey and the socio-economic assessment of the COVID-19 impacts in Myanmar. These two plans to do for the COVID-19 pandemic. So that the first one, high-frequency monitoring survey, is by using the phone survey. It was focused on the socio-economic and household in rural and urban areas. And the next plan is focus on the key vulnerable groups, and then entrepreneurs and digital transformations, in which include young, old, and the lack of the health insurance and healthcare system. This is emphasized to do. Next slide. So that CSO Myanmar is coordinating and joining with the UNDP in order to create body to do high frequency data dashboard. Also, CSO Myanmar is also joining with the World Bank in order to create a Myanmar monitoring platform by using the high frequency phone survey. You can see the data on the World Bank website also. Next slide, please. I would like to introduce the Myanmar certificate data dashboard. CSO Myanmar and UNDP join together with the Line Ministry in order to produce the official statistics in timely, and then to measure the COVID-19 effect and COVID-19 pandemic. So that statistical data dashboard is created. Now we are launched already Myanmar statistical data dashboard. And then high frequency data dashboard also you can see on the statistical data dashboard, in which there are two groups. The first group is for the socio-economic indicators and regular release of the CSO. And then the second group is the indicators affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is referred to the CERB plan. Next slide, please. This is a Myanmar certificate data dashboard. You can see the two links, www.mmsdd.org, and you can study on the mmsdd on the www.csostat.gov.mm also. You can find the two groups also, and the high frequency dashboard in this screen. Next slide. Then I would like to introduce for the implementation of UNSD data platform and the UNSD-FCDO project. Now we are creating the UNSD platform with the help of the UNSD, with the aid of the UNSD, the technical assistance obtained from UNSD. So now I would like to present for the activities. We are now studying the modeling the data sets, examples of the ASEAN data sets. And then we are preparation of the preparation of the national data and metadata with the DSD format with the indicators of the indicator 1 SDG 151. Then we are now with the checking the series code of the global SDG and ASEAN SDG. Next slide, please. Then we are editing the translation process in Myanmar version. We can create with the Open SDG platform in Myanmar and English version with the head of UK statistics by arrangement of the UNSD and the UNSD-FCDO project. So you can see it on the link below links. Now we are waiting for the remote training for editing, removing, redesigning, and then visualization, and then editing. We have to hold the link for the UNSD Open Data Myanmar Open Data Platform and with the www.csostat.gov.mn. Next slide, please. This is a Myanmar Open SDG platform in indicator SDG 151 in Myanmar version and English version. We are now trying to with the head of the UK statistics and the UNSD-FCDO project. Next slide, please. Also, all of the UNSD-FCDO project created the country page. So Myanmar also the country page. You can see the data as Australia overall structure of the SDG monitoring and then user engagement activities, and then the national data and metadata. So also you can find the progress of Myanmar for the SDG monitoring. SDG monitoring on the Myanmar country page. You can see that the following link, the above link, the Myanmar country page. You can study Myanmar progress of the SDG monitoring. This is the Myanmar country page screenshot, and you can see what the user engagement activity photos, and then for the another country page like other UNSD-FCDO project member countries. Next slide, please. Then I would like to introduce for the ASEAN database website web border because Myanmar is already trying to support the data in order to produce the ASEAN SDG data indicators based on 2020 and SDG web border in which the COVID-19 pandemic effect on SDG monitoring is also included. 68 sub-indicators among the 134 sub-indicators of the ASEAN SDG. You can study the following link. Next slide, please. This is the ASEAN web border. We are now always supporting the data, ASEAN SDG data into this border. Next slide, please. Now Myanmar is COVID-19. I would like to introduce the COVID-19 vaccination process in Myanmar. Now COVID-19 vaccination process is initiated at the end of the January 2021. India has donated for the COVID vaccine for the 75,000 people with 1.5 million COVID. So we are now started to do the step of the Ministry of Health and Sport, and then we are intended to take a vaccine for the elderly person over 65 year old. Next slide, please. I would like to introduce the second part of the Vienna preparation in Myanmar. I have mentioned in the previous presentation, Myanmar is now preparing for the first Vienna. Planning department is served as the secretary body, and then CSO, Central Organization of Myanmar, is served as a co-secretary, and other related ministries and departments are trying to fulfill to do the report. Next slide, please. Coordination Committee, lead of the Deputy Ministers of Planning, Finance and Industry, as organized as a coordination committee. This was decided to do which SDG or which effect is more suitable for to do for the report, to do for the VNR report. And then working groups for the working groups for the report writing and the goal SDG groups have been organized in Myanmar. The members, the set of CSOs are included in this all of the groups. Next slide, please. I would like to introduce the VNR report and focus themes. This is very important for the now Myanmar VNR is with the head of the UNDP and expressed from the UNSD-FCDO. So we can report with all of the 70 goals. However, we have the 6 themes, and in this is also aligned with the Myanmar Sustainable Development Plan. I would like to give the 4 examples of the 6 themes. Peace, national reconciliation, security, and governance. This is the SDG goal 60 and MSDGs goal 1. And the next themes is inclusive economic recovery and job creation. This is the global SDG 8, 9, and 14. Myanmar Sustainable Development Goal is 2, 3, and 4. Then next theme is COVID-19 recovery and health. This is the SDG goal, global SDG goal 3 and MSDG goal 4. Next slide, please. Next theme is education and human capital. This is also the global SDG goal 4 and MSDG goal 4. Then next theme. Next theme is sustainability, climate action and improvement. This is the global SDG goal 13, 14, and 15. MSDG is goal 5. Then next 16. The final theme is leaving no one behind. Then equality of persons with disabilities, and inequality and social protection. This is the global SDG goal 1, 5, and 11. Prosperity and MSDG. Next slide, please. So, all of the countries are the challenges in the COVID-19 pandemic for doing the SDG monitoring and COVID VNR report. The first challenge is the short data shortage for the SDG monitoring and the data available, high quality data available, timeliness, and the disaggregate data. These are the problem for the challenges for SDG monitoring and to do for the VNR. And then the next challenges is the weakness between the cooperation between the government and public in working level, operational level, networking level, and then for the most of the level for the SDG monitoring and to organize for the VNR report. Especially for the SDG monitoring, it's difficult to get the data, high quality data. And then this one is we have still needed for the capacity development for the statistical units. It needs to be strengthened. And then line ministries also are taken initiated in the administrative data, generated administrative data related to the SDG. These are the challenges of the Myanmar for SDG monitoring. And we are trying to do the VNR report in timely. And I thank you for the UNSD for happy body to do for the open SDG data platform. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nuni Mang, for also sharing all of your experiences and all the hard work that you've been putting into this. And as you heard, both from Zimbabwe and from Myanmar, they're also in the work or in the process of preparing their voluntary national reviews. So it will be very interesting to see the process that is going on there in the next weeks and months. I'm now handing over to Ian Cody, who will moderate our panel of today. Ian Cody is our contact person at the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, or former DFID. And he's there also a geospatial advisor in the Data for Development team. Over to you, Ian.
Thank you, Rebecca. So just as an introduction really to this panel session, obviously we know that the COVID-19 pandemic has challenged the statistical community in ways that I don't think we could have really comprehended prior to 2020. But I think what it has shown is the value and the impact that high quality, robust data can have in informing response. And we've started to see data, graphs, maps in the public domain on a regular basis and in quantities that we've never seen before. And I think hopefully this really does create some new opportunities to help drive the delivery of that 2030 SDG agenda as governments and the wider public start to really build trust in statistics. So I think today's panel session is an opportunity to dig into some of those challenges and opportunities in a bit more detail, and really to try and define what this new normal will look like in the context of the SDG agenda as we come out of the pandemic response. So with that, I'd like to welcome our very esteemed panel of speakers today. We have Dr. Ola Awad, who is president of the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics. We have Ms. Abarash Taraku, who is Deputy Director General for the National Statistical System Coordination and Operation for the Central Statistical Agency of Ethiopia. We have Mr. Andrew Telewoyan, who is the SDG focal point at the Liberia Institute of Statistics and Information Services, and is also the National Census Coordinator for Liberia's first digital census. And we finally have Mr. Rajwan Silwal, who is Director of the Planning Section of the Nepalese Central Bureau of Statistics. Before I actually get into asking the questions, I should just say as well that there is an opportunity here through the WebEx platform to ask your own questions. So there is a Q&A section on there, or you can drop it into the chat. And I will try and pick up those questions, because I think it's important that these don't just come from me, but that they come from you as well, in wanting to understand how that interaction between the COVID response and the SDG agenda has changed. But I think I will start and take the chair's prerogative on this to ask the first question. And I talked in that introduction a little bit about that kind of increased demand for data as part of the COVID response. So can I maybe start by asking Andrew, how have attitudes to data changed in your country as a response to the COVID pandemic? And to what extent have you been able to balance the short-term needs of COVID with the longer-term needs of the 2030 SDG agenda? Thank you.
Thank you. This oh. Of COVID.
Sorry, Andrew. I think we're having a bit of trouble with your signal, just breaking up there. So maybe maybe if I ask the same question to Rajan, and maybe we can just see if we can improve the line at all to allow you to come back and finish that.
It's always like what the government is no. Am I being heard?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I was trying to just wrap up on that. Like in the short term, we've tried to lobby with institutions that are international, the UNDP, the World Bank, to produce data that will be able to provide the urgent need, especially in the monitoring of COVID-19 and other routine statistics. So for the long term, we are still committed to producing or conducting the census, which we believe will provide more than 30% of the data that we need to monitor the SDGs in the meantime. So the major thing we decided to do, or we've been fighting to do, is to fight for political will, that the government understands and embraces the need for the production of data in a timely manner. I hope I was clear. Sorry, the network here is so terrible.
Thank you. No, that summary came through very nicely indeed. So yeah, can I then, yeah, I will ask the same question to Rajan then. I mean, if you maybe want to come in and talk a little bit about how attitudes towards data have changed in Nepal as a response to this, and balancing that out against the 2030 agenda.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you to all the UNSD staff members. And for the data is the same before and after the pandemic. But I have also mentioned the same thing in the previous online meetings, that the NSO of Nepal did not take any survey or any prepared or managed any data hubs regarding the effects of COVID-19. Of course, the Ministry of Finance asked the NSO to estimate the effects of COVID-19, to what extent the COVID-19 is likely to decrease the rate of GDP. That was estimated by the NSO, but we didn't conduct any survey regarding the effects of COVID. So even time of COVID-19, almost 75 days, all the government offices were closed, but we had already conducted the field work of multiple indicators cluster survey, and the friends conducting that survey were quite busy in processing the data of the survey. And finally, as the government offices opened up after 75 days, we were able to produce some 32 SDG indicators from multiple indicators cluster survey. We could not conduct any workshops, any seminars, or any statistical activities during those days because we were not asked to conduct any such activities. Now we are almost being normal, but our case that the population census, the preparation of population census is going on. In coming June, we'll be conducting our 12th population census. That is putting a big pressure for all of us. That is the situation, I can say, at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's very interesting, and actually really kind of gets to the point around the kind of the impact of locking down on statistical activities. So maybe if I kind of ask the next question then to Dr. Awad. Have you, as the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics, experienced any barriers to delivering your SDG monitoring and reporting during the pandemic, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Thank you very much, and I'm really very much pleased to join you in this important webinar. Actually, you know, the pandemic was a shock and revealed high demand of data. And I know it was really a crisis worldwide, but I may say for the national statistical organizations, it was really an opportunity to bring the attention and the importance of data in such crisis. Yes, I may say, you know, when you have a crisis, an interruption happens because you're not actually well prepared. But it's important, you know, to as a national statistical organization to manage such kind of crisis. So I see it from a perspective of crisis management, whether on the SDGs data, whether on the high demand of data, and the most important also the safety of our employees and the environment of the institution. So yes, it was really very challenging. The I mean, the part of, I may say, the practice is how you can have such an real engagement with our issue partners, with the government, how to be creative and initiator and not to wait to anyone to call for your for you to help and support. So I may say the pandemic revealed high demand of data in general. It brought very much more attention to the importance of the timeliness issue of the data, the wide disaggregation also, the importance of having advanced admin data system, the importance of how we can, I mean, develop the institution towards the different kind of data collection and developing methodologies accordingly. So, I mean, replacing the means of data collection, all of us, no one was able to be in the field as a field data collection. And it has been changed from face-to-face interviews to phone surveys. It was really a good opportunity also to review our existing data and to be categorized to the pandemic and to be republished. And the heavy use of the dissemination on the social media tools was of a great advantage. I may also say that the UNSD-FCDO project on the work on the SDG monitoring before the crisis helped us in managing the SDG monitoring during the crisis and creating such a special portal, or I may say a dashboard for the pandemic related data and the relevant links and other data sources. So I may say it was such an important experience, and it's still a learning process to us. We face so many challenges. I may say, I just see on the chat about, you know, how you control the, about the quality control and about the quality, I mean, the quality of data control through COVID-19. Yes, it's important. We succeeded in developing methodologies and increasing the quality of data through the pandemic. But it was, I may say, the most important, how you can bring a timeliness data in such a high demand of data and get use of it. I may say also our cooperation with the World Bank was so much important in learning the best practices on measuring the impact of the pandemic on socioeconomic conditions of the household and also on the businesses. So what I'm saying, it was challenging, but I may say it was such a great opportunity for us as national statistical organizations in how we managed the crisis institutionally and how we managed the data collection during the crisis and how we managed the high demand of data in general, and as you mentioned, the SDG monitoring. The most important thing that we are moving to a new era of development of statistics, of data modernization, and of data stewardship. And I may say it gave us a huge lesson, the pandemic, how much important to engage really and to listen a lot to our partners and our stakeholders, and how we can engage also the private sector and get use of it towards the development of a data stewardship. So our nature of work as statistical organization moved not only from just a data collection towards more managing such data and managing such kind of information system. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you've hit on a really important point around statistical modernization and the potential of crisis management to drive that statistical modernization. And I also thank you for picking up on the question that was online around data quality and quality control as well. So finally, let me come to Abhirash and ask maybe about actually one of the points that Dr. Awad brought up there around that kind of need for timely and disaggregated data. So could I maybe ask you, has there been an increased demand within Ethiopia for timely disaggregated data as a response to the pandemic, and how has that demand then translated itself into SDG reporting?
Okay, thank you very much. The demand for data in relation to the SDG is still continues, and especially more disaggregated data is required. So during the pandemic, most of our surveys were stopped, but now we resumed the surveys by putting the necessary protection for COVID. So more data needs are coming, like data need in relation to poverty measurement, disaggregated by different characteristics, the labor force participation, the agricultural production, and other data needs are coming. And the nature of the data need changed in such a way that more disaggregated data is required, disaggregated by gender, disaggregated by different characteristics. So more disaggregated data is needed, and there is also a request to input and collect data on the impact of COVID. And now we have also learned that there is a need to more divert to electronic data collection and dissemination instead of paper-based data collection. So now we have decided that almost all our surveys are moved from paper-based data collection to electronic data collection. So I can say that the data need is increasing, and more disaggregated data are needed. And we are working to provide those data.
Thank you. And actually, maybe just a quick follow-up question on that one. I mean, where you've talked about the kind of drive for more disaggregated data, are you seeing an increase in the amount of non-traditional data sources being brought in, both to support COVID-19 response, but also then to support the SDG agenda?
Yeah, actually the data need is increasing. So what we are doing is we are trying to address those data needs by using different sources, by surveys, by conducting different surveys, as I said, poverty surveys, labor force surveys, agriculture surveys, and so on. And we are also looking into using administrative data from different sources and by improving their data quality. So we are trying to use those sources also to be used as a good data source to supply the need, the data need. So we are doing in that way also. So yeah, we are doing it that way.
Thank you. So unfortunately, we are kind of moving towards the end of the allotted time for this panel session. But I guess I'll kind of wrap it up maybe with the same question for all four panel members. Obviously, we have a number of agencies and countries represented on this side event who have an interest in how they can support their own SDG monitoring. So my final question for all four panel members is, what lessons have you learned from this COVID pandemic on delivering SDG monitoring and reporting, and how can these be taken forward by other organizations into the kind of post-COVID world? I'll start then with Andrew again, I think, please, if you can maybe pick up that question.
I think going forward, I think countries now need to adapt to more technology. There's a need now to transition more towards technology, and I think the issue of SDGs monitoring calls for more resources. So technology is expensive. Yeah, it's something that helps a lot, but it is expensive. But I think that all countries need to pay more attention to transition, to that point where we can include more technology rather than going more paper-based. For our case here in Liberia, we've been more like using papers, but with COVID-19 and with the methods we've employed, we've been able to collect data online. We've been able to have, and it has been very helpful. But again, it is expensive. So statistics, and I think the way it is, it calls for more resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question then to Rajan.
Thank you, Ayan. I do agree with Andrew regarding the technology aspect. Furthermore, I would say the issue of capacity building is quite important. Recently, last week we held a 3-day workshop on our own, besides the project of UNSD-FCDO, that how can we collect data for SDG monitoring from the MIS system, which is generated from the day-to-day service delivery of different stakeholders of national system. We invited some 10 participants from different ministries, but 7 of them joined the workshop, and we found that they lack the capacity to process the data from the MI system, though they have used data in their MI system, but they lack capacity to process the relevant indicators from the MI system. That I would say, Ayan.
Thank you. Dr. Awad, same question to you then as well on lesson learning.
Yeah. Yes, it's important. I fully agree with my colleagues on the importance of the capacity development, not only for the NSOs, but also for all the members in the national statistical system. The focus also, which wasn't the case on the development of our IT infrastructure, because it became also a real challenge that the development that we're moving towards the development of data collection and getting really to be able to manage the high demand of data, that I mean our IT infrastructure is not holding the development of what we are doing with dashboards and platforms in that regard. Also, as I mentioned before, our lessons learned is towards, I was happy at the early beginning in the webinar that has been mentioned that, I mean, there was a define of about 79 indicators, if I'm correct, from the SDGs that was very much impacted. And this kind of global exercise is important to all of us. So the need to support the SDG framework with the pandemic-related indicators, especially those directly affected by the pandemic, and developing also alternative national indicators for the global SDG indicators that it is still not available. The focus on the SDG indicators that derived from the admin data, and focus on how we can also cooperate. I mean, it's not clear to us. I mean, we need such a kind of roadmap on how we can work with also the private sector in that perspective. I may add also maybe more integrate questions of the SDG indicators within the implemented surveys in the framework of measuring the impact of COVID-19 on the socioeconomic conditions of the population. The learning process and the best practices that we're learning, for example, I mean, working with the UNSD-FCDO project was of a great added value to our work in Palestine as a National Statistical Office in developing such a kind of a dashboard or a portal where it was of a great use on the national and international level. The last point I may add, engagement, a very serious engagement with our partners and data sources to agree upon the mechanism and the development of the methodologies in that perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then finally, Abarash, yes, please, if you could pick up the same point on lessons learned.
Okay, thank you. So the lessons learned are almost similar with other speakers. Basically, we realized that there is a need to enhance technology usage, which will help to digitization of data collection and also dissemination. So we need to move in that way. The other one is capacity building in all these areas, and capacity building in using new technologies, for digitization data collection and dissemination is required. And the other one is the standard dissemination platforms are also required so as to disseminate the data collected to users frequently. And the other one is coordination structure should be strengthened to involve more users, to engage more users to the system. And also there is also a need that to include additional data sources, including administrative data sources and other data sources to support the data need. And finally, we also realized that there may be a need to review the Statistics Act so as to respond to the current data needs. Thank you.
Thank you, and also actually for ending on a really important point around legislation that perhaps obviously we don't have time for it now, but certainly would be worth picking up as a separate conversation on how we adapt legislation to the COVID response. So unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. But I would like to thank all four members of the panel for their contributions, and hopefully there's a lot that people can take away from that and think about how it applies to our own statistical agencies. So with that, I will wrap up this panel session and hand back over to, I would assume, Rebecca to to kind of draw the session to a close.
Thanks so much, Ian, for moderating this session, and also to the 4 speakers for sharing the work and the views on how COVID-19 has impacted the work and the needs moving forward. I would now like to hand over to Francesca Perucci, who's the Chief of the Development Data and Outreach Branch at the UN Statistics Division, who's also overseeing the work of on the SDGs. Over to you, Francesca, for closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Vibeke, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. Great pleasure to be here and have just a few words to address the audience and our colleagues in the panels, because I know we are already over time. Just allow me to congratulate everybody. It's really impressive to hear the progress that countries have been able to make on SDG monitoring work, and despite the challenges posed by the pandemic. We heard of the great challenges, but we also heard about how national statistical offices have really been able to step up and address the challenges and the lessons learned that can be also applied in the longer term. So very, very impressive work, and very impressive to see how NSOs have been able to respond. Of course, as some of you or many of you probably have been in the previous events we had related to this project, and including the annual meeting of the project, the countries participating in the project, we talked a lot about sustainability. So it's very important to think in terms of how we continue to work together, we continue to collaborate. The pandemic is not over. We need to accelerate action on SDGs. There is a very urgent need to support and collaborate with countries to be able to respond to the continuous increased demand, and the challenge of addressing the multiple data requests. That's all I was saying, more timely data, the urgency of more timely data, even more relevant than before with the pandemic, more disaggregated data, etc. So I also allow me to thank the panelists today, everybody who contributed, but the audience who've been with us, and also a special thank to Ian Cody and all the colleagues at FCDO who've been with us through this journey, and their incredible support, and the many partners who worked with the countries, the partners who helped in setting up the platforms, all the colleagues in the UN country teams who work with us on a regular basis and then participate in the implementation of the project. So thanks again, and I look forward to the continuation of this project and to collaborating with our project countries, also beyond the project. Thank you so much. Over to you, Vibeke.
Thanks so much for the closing remarks, Francesca, and thanks to everyone who joined. We just had a question here at the end about presentations and the recording. That will be available at the UNSD-FCDO project webpage, and we put the link in the page. We will also be sending out information to everyone who registered for the event. Thanks again to all speakers and panelists, and have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh.